on Monday's Live at 5. The Entertainment Report takes us behind the scenes of Steven Spielberg's latest film.
Yes, Mike Jarek is going to talk with some of the young actors in the movie Hook.
Now, I've seen that one. That is a great flick.
Yeah, that's a fun one.
That's very exciting. Well, that is all we have for Live at 5. Hope you have a calm weekend. We are looking forward to that.
Yes, we are. We'll see you again on Monday.
Big cuts coming in America's military spending, weapons and troops, but what will that do to America's defense industry?
This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw, reporting tonight from NBC News headquarters in New York.
Good evening. It's a new world with an old enemy, the former Soviet Union, much more interested these days in eating than in fighting, which means the U.S. no longer needs as many guns, tanks, troops, planes, and missiles. Defense Secretary Dick Cheney told Congress today the president next week will propose major cuts. NBC's Pentagon correspondent Fred Francis. What's at stake here, Fred?
Well, Tom, the Pentagon's Go Slow plan calls for 1 in every 4 soldiers to look for work. For many, both soldiers and civilians, the price of peace means unemployment. If the Pentagon has its way, tens of thousands of factory workers will also be laid off because the Pentagon wants to slash new weapons building while cutting no more than 25% of its soldiers. But Congress wants new weapons like the futuristic F-22 fighter because they mean jobs in congressional districts. Cutting the GI payroll saves money faster. House Armed Services Chairman Les Aspin says the nation only needs a force able to fight an Iraqi-sized war and one other emergency at the same time.
I'm William Colby, and I was the head of the CIA.
Still others lobbying for domestic issues want deep cuts both ways.
It is time to cut our military spending by 50%.
At stake is America's future ability to fight. If the force is cut too deeply, how will we fight the next Saddam? If factories are closed, who will build the weapons when they are needed? If the mix of reductions is wrong, will we have a hollow army like after Vietnam?
We are not opposed to reducing the defense budget, but we are opposed to repeating the same dumb mistakes that we've made so often in the past. Frankly, every time we've had a major reduction in this century, we've blown it.
Ultimately, it comes down to people, like Army Captain Odell Smith, and the most humane way to cut the budget. Smith, who has a master's degree, is leaving the Army 48 months short of full retirement because he was passed over for promotion.
It would almost be a fantasy for me to think that with all the cuts that are coming down the pike, that I'd be able to withstand this promotion board results.
Smith will leave with just enough money to house his family. He's not happy, but he feels he was given a fair choice. And that's the key, according to Pentagon officials. Be fair and work down slowly to a quality force. But Congress may be more concerned about factory jobs than military morale. Tom?
Fred, Defense Secretary Cheney said these would be major cuts, but the Democrats are talking about much bigger cuts, on upwards of $100 billion over the next 5 years or so. Is the Defense Department purposely lowballing all of this right now?
Well, the philosophy of Cheney right now is something what Cap Weinberger used to do. Keep everything he wants and fight Congress in the trenches for every nickel and penny all the way down. But they're being somewhat realistic here. They know they're not going to get everything. They know they'll probably get less than the cuts that they want to, and it's a no-lose situation here, and they're going to try to make it a lose-lose situation on the Hill politically, Tom.
Thank you very much. Fred Francis at the Pentagon tonight. Whatever their size, these cutbacks will lead to leaner times in the defense industry, of course, and tougher times for the economies of those states which rely heavily on military contracts. NBC's Keith Morrison begins tonight in California.
Today in the early morning gloom, 800 McDonnell Douglas workers walked into the empty place between swords and plowshares. It was their last shift today. Defense doesn't need them anymore.
They don't lay off the bosses. They get to stay, and we get to leave. That's not right.
Oh, but managers are going too. In Connecticut, United Technologies, having hemorrhaged $1 billion, laid them off from every level, 14,000 jobs, and left a company chairman who lately sounds depressed.
Sterile language like worse folks reductions doesn't begin to describe the painful dislocation
In California, many of the little companies that lived on the scraps of defense budgets have already folded up and disappeared. And the landscape of defense industry states is littered with unused factories.
But not everywhere. The transition, painful though it is, has begun. Hughes Aircraft, for example, is paring down, cutting jobs, but also reinventing itself.
There are some significant cultural changes that are being made throughout the company. The transition is long and the transition is painful, so we still have a long way to go.
Still, Hughes has worked with General Motors to transfer fighter jet technology to motor cars. This 1992 Cutlass is equipped with a heads-up cockpit display on the windshield. And the advanced radar techniques developed for the military? Hughes is building new air traffic control systems incorporating those. Hughes wants to stay in defense, but will never depend on defense so much again. But what do you tell the worker who makes the submarines nobody needs anymore?
It means for me you got to chop a lot of wood and work at the corner grocery store or something, if there is any.
And all around America, companies that have worked in defense are telling their workers goodbye. And they, on a last shift anywhere, are saying,
got to retrain myself and get out of defense.
Easy to say, but for a person, for a nation, hard to do. Keith Morrison, NBC News, Los Angeles.
Another difficult task is ending this country's housing slump. NBC News now has confirmed that President Bush will propose a tax credit for first-time home buyers in his State of the Union speech next week. The $5,000 credit will be spread over 2 years, and it's aimed at helping home sellers as well as home buyers. Japan's Prime Minister Miyazawa, who was host to President Bush in Tokyo earlier this month, today tried to smooth over Japanese-American differences. In a nationally televised speech, Miyazawa told his parliament that Japan owes its prosperity to American help after World War II, and he said Japan should try to import more foreign goods and help end the current U.S. recession. As for American consumers, many of them are reining in their credit cards during these tough times, in part because of the high interest rates charged for bank cards. But NBC's Jim Cummins tonight is at a small bank going the other way, with great success.
Simmons First National. One moment, sir.
Pine Bluff, Arkansas is a small city, 60,000 people.
Simmons First National.
With a telephone system that is on the verge of a meltdown.
Simmons First National.
Because the biggest bank in town charges the lowest interest rate of any bank card in America, 8.5%.
The way it looks, yes, sir, it's going to be, pretty much 8.5 for a while.
And each day, this bank gets 22,000 telephone calls from people wanting to get a piece of that action.
Okay, this application will go out and mail to you tomorrow.
It's easy to understand why so many people want a low-rate bank card from this small city in Arkansas. Call it the double whammy. The interest rates banks pay on savings accounts have plunged to about 4%, while the rates many of them collect on bank cards remain high, between 18 and 20%. So everybody is trying to get the Simmons First National Bank card, or at least it seems that way. Under state law, Arkansas banks can only charge 5% over the federal discount rate, which is at its lowest point since 1964. So how does this bank make a profit when the out-of-state banks are charging 18 to 20% interest?
We do not and cannot and will not take the credit risk that other institutions throughout the nation have been willing to do.
That means only 20% of the card applicants get the low-rate card. They often use it for big-ticket items. Belinda Matthews bought a ring.
When I opened up my statement, I said, $14, you've got to be kidding.
Only periodically does this little bank in Arkansas take out-of-state applications for its credit card. Linda Silby says, thank goodness.
No, sir, we did this again back in '86, and our boss swore it would not be like it was back then. It's worse.
You need to call another number for an application.
Jim Cummins, NBC News, Pine Bluff, Arkansas.
When Nightly News continues in a moment, Charles McLean in South Africa on the latest step toward racial equality in that country. And tonight's Daily Difference, Decision 92, Senator Bob Kerrey of Nebraska. He has a plan for health care for every American.
Senator, I'm from Haverford College.
Fettuccine, tortellini, linguine. I can't pass up any eeny. But I'll pass on this grated topping.
See, some grated toppings are only 2/3 cheese and 1/3 fats and fillers. But Kraft is 100% grated Parmesan.
Kraft 100% grated Parmesan for 100% great taste.
Ravioli, mustacholi, great on Olis, too.
A cold starts small, but before you know it, your cold is full grown. Maximum strength Dimetapp relieves sneezing and congestion. 12-hour Dimetapp Extend tabs, relief for the full-grown cold.
Which of these fruits, ounce for ounce, has the most vitamins and minerals? That's right. California prune.
Sweet, delicious California prunes. Find out how good they really are.
South Africa today moved one step closer to a multiracial government with the opening of what could be that country's last all-white parliament. Still, nothing changes easily in South Africa, and that was made clear again today. NBC's Charles McLean in Cape Town.
The days of South Africa's white government are, by its own admission, numbered.
We are equally convinced that the composition of Parliament too should be changed to include the total population in an equitable manner.
In his opening address to Parliament today, President F.W. de Klerk reiterated his intention to share power with a black majority in a transition government, the first step on the road to a new, non-racial constitution. But there's a catch. De Klerk said today that the creation of a multiracial, including whites, in a referendum vote. African National Congress President Nelson Mandela thinks de Klerk is stalling on democracy.
It is ridiculous in our own view to embark on negotiations and then go and consult a particular ethnic group whose response might be negative.
Blacks may not yet have the vote, but there was a clear sense in Cape Town today that the power in South Africa had moved from Parliament to the streets. As the president spoke, thousands of blacks marched on Parliament, protesting the slow pace of reform, a demonstration of people power which would have been illegal before the government ended the state of emergency. And another example, perhaps, of how the reforms initiated by President de Klerk may soon put his white government out of business. Charles McLean, NBC News, Cape Town.
Closer to home, a tough sentence in El Salvador today for two military men convicted of ordering the murder of 6 Jesuit priests, their housekeeper, and her daughter. The killings more than 2 years ago prompted moves in this country to cut off aid for El Salvador. The Army colonel and lieutenant were each sentenced to the maximum, 30 years in prison. This was a historic day in Beijing as China and Israel established full diplomatic relations. China has been a champion of Palestinian rights, and it will join the Middle East peace talks next week. And there's more tonight on Magic Johnson and Australia's Olympic basketball team. The Australians said they might boycott the games if Johnson, who has the AIDS virus, plays on the American team. But today, Australia's Olympic Committee said a boycott was out of the question.
Paradise surrounds me. There's no place like this on land. All my cares, they're behind me. The world's in my command.
The most magnificent resorts on Earth are on water. Royal Caribbean, the grand resorts of the 7 seas.
Royal Caribbean.
This was me with dull gray hair. I looked washed up. Then I found a whole new way to make my gray look great.
Introducing a new kind of shampoo from the makers of Just for Men hair care called Great Looking Gray. Great Looking Gray does more than clean and condition. It gets rid of the dullness, even yellow buildup, brings out the real silver.
What a difference it makes.
New Great Looking Gray shampoo, and for stubborn yellow, new Great Looking Gray anti-yellow treatment.
Now's the time for Centrum Silver, because you're over 50 and you're out there swinging. Centrum Silver, a complete vitamin formula for your changing nutritional needs. Centrum Silver, it's a great time to be silver.
This winter, the cost of heating is surprisingly low, thanks to Cream of Wheat, a hot, nutritious breakfast for as little as 10 cents a serving. Cream of wheat, also available in instant. Turn up the heat for less.
Tonight's Daily Difference, Decision 92, a profile of Senator Bob Kerrey of Nebraska, who's running for the Democratic presidential nomination. Before this campaign, Kerrey was best known for winning the Congressional Medal of Honor in Vietnam and dating Deborah Winger. Now, people are taking a look at some of his ideas. Here's NBC's Andrea Mitchell.
Even when going through the very public rituals of a political campaign, Bob Kerrey seems to be holding something back. Until he gets someplace like Barbara Parker's living room in Epsom, New Hampshire, and starts preaching his gospel of government-run universal health care paid for by higher taxes.
It's a life and death issue for me. I'm the one that had to get up every morning and say, I'm going to make the effort to learn how to walk again, and did so. But the government of the United States of America saved my life.
He lost part of a leg in a night raid as a Navy SEAL in Vietnam. Understanding that experience is fundamental to understanding Kerrey's competitiveness and his belief that government has a responsibility to its citizens.
You know, I only had 2 toes sticking out of the cast, and they were black. They were turning black and starting to stink. And so I had a pretty good idea that when I reached Philly that I was going to be an amputee.
Angry, bitter?
I mean, I really was not angry. You know, the hospital environment was one where I learned for the first time in my life that other people were suffering. Not that I was suffering. Other people were suffering far more than I was. Artificial limbs.
It is an experience he recalls over and over again in his campaign. It influenced his decision to oppose the Gulf War.
I cannot shake the conclusion that it would be a mistake for us to launch a war against Iraq.
And it could make him less willing to commit troops as commander-in-chief.
Well, yes, actually, it is going to make me cautious, making sure that not just that I, you know, that when we send men and women into combat, that it's for the right cause, and that we have the capacity and the willingness to sustain it all the way to the end.
Beyond his personal story and national health care plan, what are Kerrey's qualifications to be president? He says his record. In Nebraska, he built a successful chain of restaurants, now expanded to health clubs. A political novice, he leaped into the governor's race and won. How did he do in office?
It wasn't heroic or outstanding, but there's some mitigating factors there, too. We were in a revenue shortfall period, and under our system, why the budget has to be balanced.
In fact, he eliminated a deficit and produced a surplus. Conservative in his fiscal policy, but not in his lifestyle. Divorced, the bachelor governor flaunted his relationship with actress Deborah Winger. He was so new to politics, he says he didn't think through key issues. On abortion, went from pro-life to pro-choice.
I just had not debated, I had not discussed it, and I was, in my first campaign for governor, I was all over the map on the issue of abortion.
I think he's gaining more support all the time, no, for it.
Still, Nebraskans loved him, even if he seemed to be making it up as he went along. But after one term, he quit, looking for a bigger challenge. The chance came with an open Senate seat, and now the run for president.
I think he can cut it. I really do. I'm not sure if he knows what it's going to entail, but I think he can do it.
He's brash, a quick study, but critics say impulsive and not always focused.
He's got a stop-and-go charisma about him. Sometimes he can excite his audiences. I mean, they just really get in with it. And other times, it's just almost like he's lost.
Part of Kerrey's initial appeal was his aura of mystery. But to really connect with the voters, he's going to have to show more of who he really is. Andrea Mitchell, NBC News, Washington.
In a moment, what happens when man bites shark?
If you're using a credit card to get a cash advance, you're probably getting soaked, because ordinary cards charge you interest right from day one, which is why you should use the Discover card. Just pay your full monthly balance and a small transaction fee, and we'll give you cash, interest-free. So you can avoid taking a bath. It pays to Discover.
Let's throw a party with your birthday money. I'm putting it into a MetLife State Street mutual fund. Balloons, a few friends, your big sister. Maybe a stock or a bond fund, a money market or tax-exempt fund. In time, I could have thousands of dollars in my MetLife mutual fund. Thousands? What a party that could be. Get Met, it pays.
Fortunately, my heart attack wasn't the end of the world. It was kind of a beginning. To help prevent a second attack, my doctor prescribed exercise, eating right, and Therapy Bear Enteric aspirin. Enteric means it's safety-coated to help protect your stomach, because it doesn't dissolve in your stomach. I asked my doctor if this regimen with Therapy Bear Enteric would really make a difference down the road. That's why I'm doing it myself, he said.
Therapy Bear Enteric aspirin. Take it from your doctor.
I'm really sorry I'm late.
Late? We're having coffee.
Taster's choice. Just in time.
You know, everyone except...
We've met.
We, share the same taste in coffee.
Savor the sophisticated taste of Taster's Choice.
Are you always late?
Not tomorrow.
What happens tomorrow?
I'm inviting you to dinner.
What makes you think I'll accept?
You can't resist my coffee.
Time now for a quick check of other news tonight. A memorial mass is being said for 2 Notre Dame swimmers killed in a bus crash early today. 34 others were injured. The women's swim team was returning from a meet when the bus flipped over. Former heavyweight boxing champion Mike Tyson arrived in Indianapolis today for the fight of his life. Tyson goes on trial Monday, charged with raping a contestant in a Miss Black America pageant. And scientists now say the body of that ancient hunter found last year in an alpine glacier may be 5,500 years old. That's almost 1,000 years older than previously thought. Of course, sharks have been on Earth much longer than 5,500 years, and all that time they have been regarded as predators, killers. But on Assignment Earth tonight, we learn that now, rather than threatening others, some sharks are threatened. NBC's Diana Kerrey.
Man's most feared predator, the great white shark. Fear whipped up by accounts of a 14-footer caught off Florida, fed by the aftermath of sharks attacking swimmers and surfers. We think of sharks as fearsome man-eaters, preying on human flesh. But who's really the predator and who's the prey? Shark is now the #1 fresh import at the American Fish and Seafood Company in Los Angeles. Import because some species, like thresher, are so overfished they're no longer easily found in U.S. waters.
You know, stores that used to order 5, 6, 7 pounds are now starting to order 10, 15, 20 pounds.
With demand surging, the commercial shark catch multiplied 15 times in the 1980s. And that's just in the U.S. Shark fin soup is an old Chinese favorite. Fishing shark has reached such proportions, the very survival of some species is threatened. Shark populations are especially vulnerable because females produce few pups, and they mature slowly.
The possibility exists that after a decade or two, given the current exploitation rates and kill rates, that we could be seeing some real problems. But we still have time if we act now.
The federal government is now so worried about 39 shark species, it plans to limit how many are caught. Even fishermen concede some limits are needed.
U.S. fishermen are bearing their share. We need to work to get some of these other nations involved in cooperative management of something like this.
People need to learn that a fish thought of as a predator needs protecting. Diana Kerrey, NBC News, Los Angeles.
A plan by billionaire Lawrence Tisch to buy Macy's, the financially troubled department store giant, apparently fell through this evening. A spokesman for Tisch, who's the chairman of Lowe's and CBS, said that several days of talks with Macy's had ended with no agreement. On Wall Street today, the Dow Industrials were up a bit in heavy trading, but for the week, the Dow was down more than 32 points.
This is ordinary bulk fiber. It's full of grit. This is new Sunrise Smooth Metamucil. The grit is gone because it's triple ground for smoothness. This is ordinary fiber. The grit is definitely not gone. This is new Sunrise Smooth Metamucil, the best mixing, smoothest tasting natural fiber you can buy. The grit is gone. New Sunrise Smooth Metamucil. For regularity, nothing works better. And the grit is gone.
Where do you want to be next year?
We've decided
that we want to adopt. And we're planning to live on one income. We never decided not to have kids.
It's just that the timing never seems right. Can we set up our portfolio so that I can stay home with the baby?
You can get there from here. Fisher and Lehman Brothers.
People who hurt from arthritis are discovering a safer aspirin, Ecotrin.
On a bad day, I can take up to 8 and not be concerned about irritating my stomach.
It's the orange coating that makes it safer.
Plain and buffered aspirin dissolves in the stomach where aspirin can cause damage. But Ecotrin's safety coating helps protect your stomach from aspirin's damage.
So I'm not worried taking the maximum dose.
Every 6 hours, pow, pow. For minor arthritis pain, the safer aspirin is Ecotrin. And that's the truth.
Have you had your V8 today? Did you know that V8 juice has less than half the calories of that apple?
Wow.
Did you know that V8 has more vitamins A and C than that tossed salad?
Wow.
And did you know that V8 is 100% vegetable juice, so it has no fat, unlike that low-fat yogurt?
Wow.
So how do you feel now that you know these things?
Wow. I gotta have a V8.
V8 is a nutritious blend of 8 vegetable juices that taste terrific. Have you had your V8 today?
You didn't hear? You've been on Venus? It's Super Bowl weekend. And this year, the hype moves to the Twin Cities of Minnesota, which have adopted the motto, hot, hot, hot. As NBC's Mike Betcher tells us tonight, this is more about the area's big event schedule than its temperatures.
All of the brochures said there would be fishing. The brochures didn't lie.
This is better than any Super Bowl.
The hosts of Super Bowl 26 invited visitors to experience one of Minnesota's winter pastimes. Most visitors politely declined. Minnesotans, a people who don't like to offend, didn't take offense. They understood.
Try to enjoy the winter. It's a long one.
Minnesotans understand that coldness is in the skin of the beholder. They've got thick skin here, an epidermal layer which is tough enough to deflect sub-zero temperatures and the jokes about the place they call home.
You just need a warm coat and gloves and a hat.
Who else would build a giant ice palace each year to celebrate winter and at the same time to mock the cold? Still, the Twin Cities in Minnesota yearn to show the world that despite the cold, they have built a great home. Within a 12-month period ending in April, major American championships in golf, hockey, baseball, basketball, and now football will have been held here. And still, it is not enough. When the Super Bowl is finished, city fathers are trying to book the Pope for the Metrodome. They are proud of their success, but wary of too much success.
It's not in the character of a Minnesotan to be a big glitz ball. It's not in the character of Minnesotans to run around wearing chicken feathers and pig snoots and carrying on like that. It's in the character of Minnesotans to say, please, pass the salt, please. So I think we'll be delighted when these folks go home and leave us be one more time.
Once again, another big event has put the Twin Cities back on the map. When this is over and we all leave, they would, however, like their maps back. Mike Betcher, NBC News, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Oofta. It's Minnesota Talk. And that's Nightly News for this Friday night. I'm Tom Brokaw. Gary Cutley will be here tomorrow night. I'll see you again on Monday.
Coming up on your 24-hour news source, a Senate ethics investigation is back on.
The investigation into Senator Joe Walsh was announced that it would be reopened maybe as early as Monday. We'll have reaction and the possibility of some new allegations coming up live.
The governor's $3 billion budget is released. It includes millions in new taxes.
And we'll have a live update on the Urbandale water tank that split open last night.
These stories plus the Des Moines postal carrier killed in a bizarre accident. The news is next.
Light. It is the first element of creation. Nothing brings it more elegantly or shapes it more beautifully than Andersen windows and patio doors. Live in the light of Andersen windows. Come home to Andersen.
This is it.
Your last chance to get a brand new Ford Ranger for only $9,085. That's a great price on America's favorite sport truck, loaded with a sliding rear window, AM/FM stereo, chrome rear step bumper, and more. But hurry, this special offer is only for a limited time, and this may be your last chance to get a fully equipped Ford Ranger for only $9,085. See your local Ford dealer now, because this is your last chance.
You counted on Iowa Methodist from the time your baby was just a twinkle in your eye. And we were there, providing you the best from preconceptual classes through birthing services to postnatal care. We offered the environment that gave you comfort and the team of specialists who gave you confidence. And as your child grows, Blank Children's Hospital is there with board-certified specialists in more than 20 important areas of pediatric care. Iowa Methodist Medical Center, because you and your child deserve the best.
You're watching WHO TV 13 Des Moines, your 24-hour news source. And now, John Bachman, Kim Kerrigan, Rick Silvestrini with sports, and meteorologist Gary Amble with tonight's forecast. This is News Center 13 at 6.
A wild week at the state capitol ends with another bombshell announcement about the ethics investigation into former Senate President Joe Welch. Good evening. Jim Strickland in tonight for John Bachman. The on-again, off-again ethics probe of Joe Welch is back on again.
That decision came late this afternoon from the Democratic chairwoman of the Senate Ethics Committee. The Associated Press reports that Senator Jean Lloyd Jones has reopened the investigation into the former Senate president and his ties to the Iowa Trust scandal. She said, quote, "We decided that we're going to reconvene and let everybody ask all the questions they want." Senator Lloyd Jones has declined to say why the investigation is resuming.
But that decision did send shockwaves throughout the corridors of the Capitol late today. News Center 13's Therese Thompson is there. She joins us with the live eye. Therese, what are lawmakers saying about all of this?
Well, shock and surprise was definitely words we heard aloud out here in response to all of this. Of course, this decision comes in the wake of huge public outcry. We're told the phones were ringing off the hook here with the public very upset over the decision to end the investigation. Of course, earlier this week, Jean Lloyd Jones said that they were dropping it because they couldn't punish Senator Welch any more than he's already been, so that's why they were dropping it. But today they changed their minds, and we talked to a couple of senators, both Democrats and Republicans today, who said this had to happen.
It'll be interesting to see it because I think people need to know it. I mean, I think the public trust in the Iowa legislature, which always has been on a high level, is probably at its lowest level now, just based on the phone calls that I'm getting today.
I guess shock and amazement. I don't quite understand what's going on. Whether there's new information that they have discovered or why they're changing around, I guess I have to commend them because they're certainly needed to reopen it. And I'm happy from that standpoint, but I just think it makes us look somewhat foolish.
And this picture on the front of today's paper with Jean Lloyd Jones with a gun to her head just really illustrates the kind of pressure that she was feeling when they decided to reopen the investigation. And this leaves the door open for other allegations to come out, and that could happen as soon as Monday, Jim.
All right, Therese, we are losing your live signal here. I'm going to try to ask you this question anyway, see if we can hear you. We've heard that there were other allegations that will be coming out. Are those going to be about Joe Welch, other lawmakers? What are we talking about here?
Actually, both, Jim. We should have more allegations against Joe Welch from the Senate Republicans. They said they were going to file some very specific charges on Monday. And Welch has said, it has been reported that Welch has allegations against 14 other senators, and that could come out as well since this investigation is being reopened. We'll definitely be following it on Monday.
All right, Therese Thompson reporting live for us from the State House. Therese, thank you very much. While the Senate Ethics Committee will re-examine Senator Welch's links to the Iowa Trust scandal, a court-appointed receiver today sent a warning to some of the Trust's investors today. David Lyons warned Polk County and 4 other investors about ignoring his claim that they owe the Trust more than $13 million. Lyons says those counties have to share in the losses because they withdrew funds before it was learned more than $75 million was missing from the Trust. Earlier, a Polk County judge approved Lyons' plan to distribute nearly $19 million to the Trust's investors, except for Polk County and the 4 others that took money out early.
Governor Branstad's new budget plan is out tonight, and it's certain to cause some bickering at the State House. Armed with charts and graphs, the governor's top budget expert released the spending plan this morning, a budget that leaves the door open for the possibility of more state layoffs. The spending plan for the upcoming fiscal year totals $3.34 billion. It includes $54 million in new taxes. Democrats say some of the proposals won't fly because it's an election year. Among the increases, higher taxes on cigarettes and wine coolers, plus expansion of the state's sales tax. The governor is threatening more state layoffs as part of his budget balancing act. Branstad says the state just can't afford to issue pay raises to state workers. But if he's forced to by law, he'll have to cut nearly 4,000 more jobs. News Center 13's Kathy Saltero spoke with some state workers and got their reaction earlier today.
Many state workers hadn't heard about the governor's budget proposals this afternoon, but when they did, it came as a big surprise.
I'm disturbed over it, and I guess my feeling would be if the staff is going to be decreased, the public's going to have to expect a decrease in services.
I don't know how he expects us to keep on functioning. I know I work for DNR, and we have severe backloads as it is, and I think the public's going to suffer quite a bit.
When Branstad laid off 1,500 state workers this summer, protesters wouldn't leave him alone. Workers objected that he violated an arbitrator's agreement. Even now, they stand by that principle.
We're all worried about layoffs, but the fact is that I think the state workers are not going to let the governor violate what we feel is a good faith agreement.
I'm shocked. I think that the governor must be a terrible manager if he cannot pay a 4% cost of living raise to his employees when the annual growth in revenues in the state of Iowa is still at or above 4%.
For the most part, state workers feel this is just another threat by the governor, and they have greater faith in the legislature to override any of his decisions on any more layoffs. At the State House, Kathy Saltero, News Center 13.
AFSCME union leaders say they'll review the governor's proposal and make an official comment next week.
Authorities back on the scene of a traffic accident today in which 4 people were killed. That happened last November. As News Center 13's Mary Mills tells us now, they're trying to determine whether charges should be filed.
State troopers called it one of the worst accidents they'd ever seen. 4 members of the John Sitton family killed in a head-on crash just east of the I-80 Mixmaster. Today, authorities returned to the crash site to do 2 things: to retrace the accident and to help determine if charges should be filed against the man who caused it, Gene Coons.
The charges that could file would be anything from driving on the wrong side of the interstate to, I guess, vehicular homicide.
Assistant County Attorney Fred Gay rode along as troopers reenacted the accident. This is where they say Coons left the road.
I wanted to get a sense for the distance and the terrain that he had to go over.
Authorities say Coons, who was eastbound on I-80, swerved into the median, traveling about 2,000 feet before pulling into westbound traffic. They say he then drove another mile or so down the highway before causing the 5-car pileup. As troopers retraced the path of the accident, they videotaped it. Authorities say videotaping the reenactment not only helps in their investigation, but could also serve as compelling evidence in court should charges be filed.
I guess my own impression is that it was an extremely long distance and that there should have been an opportunity for the vehicle to stop well ahead of when the accident occurred.
Authorities are still awaiting word on whether Coons had a medical problem. Their investigation should be finished in 2 to 3 weeks. Mary Mills, News Center 13.
And Mary reports to us that drug and alcohol tests on Coons were negative. A West Des Moines postal worker was killed this afternoon in a freakish accident. It happened at the intersection of 13th and Grand. Authorities say 27-year-old Todd Jordan pulled out from a stop sign and was hit by a car. Jordan was tossed from his vehicle and his body struck a utility pole. He was pronounced dead at Iowa Methodist from head and neck injuries.
A Clive man is without a home tonight after fire destroyed his house early this morning. Flames were shooting from this home when firefighters from Clive and Windsor Heights arrived just before 5 o'clock this morning. The homeowner was able to escape injury. No cause of the fire has been given, but the house was a total loss.
Still to come from your 24-hour news source, a police standoff ending peacefully in Council Bluffs.
And reporter Sharon Holland will update us on that huge water tank leak that sent thousands of gallons gushing last night into Urbandale. Stay with us.